DEI for Rome 2 is already one of the best Total War mods ever made, as I myself have said before on this very channel. But never did I imagine that the team behind this amazing overhaul for the Grand Campaign was planning on offering something Total War, or any strategy game ever for that matter, as far as I'm aware anyway, has offered. And this massively awesome thing is a completely new campaign, taking place during the civil war of Sulla and the war against Mithridates of Pontus. And before I go on, if you enjoy what I do, I'd really appreciate if you consider supporting the channel by becoming a patron, as it helps a lot in keeping the channel up and running. This is the Mithridatic Wars campaign for DEI and Rome 2, a campaign set between the first and the second of these wars, beginning in the mysterious year of 83 BC. And I say mysterious because neither Creative Assembly itself, nor any other company I can think of, has truly explored this period in Roman history. And it's not that hard to know why. The Great Roman Wars against Carthage is a few centuries behind us, and the wars of Caesar and Augustus are after all almost half a century in the future. This campaign earns a whole lot of points for being original then. But in an age where campaign map modding tools are yet to be fully circulating and understood by every modding team, how exactly does DEI manage to make us focus on this war, when, after all, the entire campaign map is available? Well, Mithridatic Wars does something incredibly smart. First of all, it divides the campaign between 3 playable factions only, namely the Romans in the west led by Marius the Younger, the Romans in the east led by Sulla, and Pontus, led by Mithridates the Great himself. Marius the Younger leads Rome itself under the name of Mariani. This is by far the largest faction in the campaign, having its main seat up and down Italy, but stretching all the way into Gaul, Iberia, and North Africa, often divided only by vassals. Mariani's empire may look stable, but underneath the surface lies danger in wait. Commanding only half of 2 armies, both stationed in southern Italy, the rest of the empire is weak. Public order, while currently under control, is in danger of rapidly deteriorating, and especially in the west, where Latin culture and religion is in the minority. For the time being though, as the ruler of Rome, Marius gains increased public order from presence of Latin culture, increased agricultural income, but as the empire is weakening, suffers increased empire maintenance costs. This is all happening while Sulla is actively standing on our doorstep in the east. But he's not the only threat, of course. Both in Gaul, Iberia, and North Africa, various tribes and kingdoms will take any opportunity to strike at Marius' unmanned borders. And so, this campaign is surely not for the faint of heart. And speaking of enemies, the masterful commander Sulla is the leader of the Solani faction, i.e. Rome in the east. Sulla's empire stretches all the way from the eastern coast of Italy to the western coast of Anatolia, making Greece and Macedonia the heartland of his rebellion. In some ways, Sulla finds himself in the same position as Marius. He fields only 2 armies, controls a large empire, and deals with a powerful enemy on his border. However, Sulla's armies are superior to Marius's, and the density of his empire makes it far easier to manage, despite having an outpost all the way over on Sardinia. But despite this, Sulla must deal with challenges of his own. His empire is filled with foreign cultures, making the raising of temples to Roman deities early on a necessity. Furthermore, while Sulla sports just 1 enemy at the beginning, Pontus lingers on his doorstep in the east. And if worst comes to worst, Sulla might face being sandwiched between 2 powerful rivals. Luckily, perhaps some of his Anatolian vassals might be of help here. And then there's Mithridates himself, a Greek king and the true and final hope of the free Greeks in Anatolia. Mithridates sits in a precarious position. His empire is vast as well, circling Anatolia and creeping all the way up into the Black Sea. With all of Rome facing him in the west, but not yet as full enemies, Pontus might just bide its time, or strike quickly to take Sulla off guard. With Sulla's vassals though, that might be harder than it sounds. Careful maneuvering is therefore Mithridates' best choice, especially because his northern, southern, and eastern borders are uncertain to say the least. And that takes us to the second point on how DEI manages to make this campaign initially focused, despite the grand campaign map. You see, Mithridatic Wars shrouds the entire world in a thick fog of war, making anything directly outside your own field of view a more or less complete mystery. Pontus barely knows of Sulla's empire and can see no further than to Syria in the south. Sulla might know much of Rome, but little of what hides in Egypt or further east. And even Marius knows nothing of northern Gaul, or indeed of Pontus himself. And therefore, by offering only 3 major factions, and having them in direct conflict with each other, DEI manages to create a campaign once again that feels focused and meaningful, despite taking place on a map offering the entire ancient world. Other than being awesome on its own, this also has the positive effect of actually allowing us to rebuild and expand the Roman Republic as either Marius or Sulla after the Civil War, as the map itself isn't restricted to a smaller but focused theater. What's added fun is of course the fact that extra effort has been put into making this campaign as immersive as possible. We have dedicated missions for each faction, and while Sulla has as his first mission to conquer the provinces of Italia and Magna Graecia, Marius must actually conquer Macedonia and Greece, a far more complex task. In addition, while Sulla can recruit generals like the famous Pompey Magnus, Marius may enlist Julius Caesar himself as a general, and I love how this time period then manages to combine the Mithridatic Wars with a hint of what may come in the future, i.e. the rise of Caesar, and actually allowing you to continue your empire as Caesar or Pompey should your current ruler perish. It must be said, however, that the issues of public order is made much easier when you factor in the large city garrisons. Most cities in DEI are heavily garrisoned after all, and Mithridates is no exception. This means that while you might be facing rebellions all over, your cities do a fine job of defending themselves. Too fine a job, I'd say, since chances are they'll defeat the rebellions that attack you without fully gathering their army. I'd probably recommend playing on hard difficulty here, even though DEI is typically balanced for normal. One of the things I love the most about Mithridatic Wars are the battle maps, because they really feel unique for this time period. Playing as 2 out of 3 of these factions makes you Roman after all. And if like me, you played Rome Total War, or watched HBO's Rome, you know there's something beautifully painful and awesome about 2 Roman armies fighting each other. This is just such a fantastically beautiful game still, and DEI's unit models make everything even better. I absolutely love watching those 1st century legions march, and the heavy reliance on a combination of regular or elite legionaries and the lighter skirmisher units combined with whatever auxiliary or local troops you can muster is always a sight to behold. I am admittedly using a reshade setting here, but the fact that an almost 10-year-old game can look this good, in part thanks to the modders who brought so much more detail, is nothing short of astonishing. And frankly, it's a good thing that it all looks so good, because since you'll be fighting Romans a lot, the least they can do is look good, right? What I love about the dynamism of 2 Roman factions here is that Marius' Rome in the west are mostly colored red, making them distinctly different from Sulla's blue legionaries. It certainly turns them into 2 separate factions without ever making things look cartoony or overly stylized. And we have to once again thank the modders for making the blue look just as realistic and as natural as the red here. Similarly, the armies of Pontus are arguably the most versatile here, sporting a variety of Greek and Eastern style units and featuring the likes of cataphract cavalry and powerful pikemen. The Romans may also require these units as mercenary or sometimes auxiliary units of course, but if you want something else than that pure Roman getup, Mithridates and Pontus are likely to have what you seek. In the end, the Mithridatic Wars campaign for DEI is absolutely fantastic, and even though it could be a tad more difficult in certain aspects, getting yet another campaign with those awesome DEI mechanics, and which actually feels distinct, is a blessing. And even though a whole new campaign map might be on the horizon in the next year or so, what the modders have done with only having 3 playable factions here, and covering most of the map in deep fog, significantly helps to focus this campaign, and makes the Mithridates campaign one of the coolest Rome 2 modding surprises I've seen thus far. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think of this awesome campaign in the comments. Remember to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time. Cheers!